Yep. I did it. I hit the wrong button. Welcome to Mysterious Forces Live. That's right, I'm back. And I've got an attitude. I've got a long list of people I'm angry about. And I'm gonna rip them a new one. That's actually not true at all. I'm glad to be back, though. I'm feeling much better. I don't like not being here. And I'll explain why I wasn't here last night. In brief, I like hearing that theme song. When I composed it, at first I thought I was kind of like taking the easy way out because it was too simplistic. But I don't know. I like hearing that little ditty now at the top of the show. I like it. So welcome. It's a Saturday night. It is Saturday, March 30th, 2019. And tomorrow is obviously the last day of March. And then we're going to get into April Fool's Day. I would like to know a little bit about you, if possible. So in the comments tonight, or in the comments afterwards, if you're not here live, leave me some comments below where you're supposed to like and subscribe below. Is that good, Professor? Like and subscribe. If you comment below, let me know what some of your favorite April Fool's Day pranks have been or are. Doesn't mean that you had to perpetrate it yourself. It might have been something you heard about that someone else did or something you saw, but leave a comment below. I'm curious about April Fool's jokes. I like them a lot. And I'm one of those people, excuse me, that would not get upset if someone pranked me because I like pranking other people. But what I found as I've gotten older is that people don't really like being pranked very much. And so, you know, as you get older, you kind of don't really do a whole lot of that. But you won't have many friends if you do that too much. But no, I like that. So please leave a comment below. I'm glad to be back. My energy is back up. We had some technical issues. I had some health issues, and I just want to do this. And I know that this new medium, and I kind of talked about this in my love letter to C.W. Chanter, this new medium allows us to kind of break out of the mold and color outside the lines a little bit, where we can have more traditional broadcasting where I have interviews and the stuff I have. And then we have some episodes where I get to do this and talk to you kind of one-on-one and just relate to the viewer. And we can mix it all up and we don't have to be married to any one kind of format. I kind of like that about this medium. I like that flexibility, to be quite honest with you. And I was really glad to have Alan Steinfeld on in terms of a last good guest. But anyway, in relationship to my love letter to C.W. Chanter, I talked about the direction of the show. It was really interesting how many people kind of like deflected some stuff to CW when in reality, if you listened very carefully to what I said, the only things I really talked about per se were what I am going to do and what I'm not going to do and what I do and what I don't do. And that was not really aimed at CW. I was not criticizing him by using that analogy. You know, some of the topics that sometimes kind of brushed up against topics that concern C.W. Chanter, but none of that was aimed at him. I was just talking about myself. And what's funny is he understood that. And some people didn't. So I found that kind of interesting. But anyway, you know, doing this kind of show, I'll tell you what the challenge is. And I just want to frame this. I am in no way whining or complaining about having this show. Most certainly not. I love doing this. And I remember when George W. Bush, during some press conference or something, he was like, being the president's hard. And I'll bet you didn't think I could do that, did you? Being the president's hard. The second one wasn't as good. The first one, I kind of got a lot closer than I thought I would. George W. Bush coming out of me. Hey, you know. Anyway, so, you know, of course, when you hear a president say being a president's hard, you're like, no shit, asshole, but you ran for office. So, you know, you kind of get what you deserve. And a lot of this is the same way, right? You start doing this kind of show and you're responsible for your guests. You're responsible for what you say. You're held accountable for your content by other people and the public. So you open yourself up to all of those elements. And sometimes, and I have felt some pressure, and I'll tell you why. Not some kind of corporate pressure from above, but pressure from within myself to deliver a quality show. Excuse me, I've got like a rasp going on a little bit tonight. To deliver a quality show and not present some bullshit or someone that I think is being disingenuous or lying. And I was so excited to start doing this show and so excited by the UFO topic. And kind of what's happened a little bit over time is as I've peeled the lid back off of ufology, whatever that is right now, this kind of private research / commercial enterprise, which is kind of blowing up now and kind of spilling over into the convention business, the live event business. As I took the lid off, I just found a handful of people, maybe 20, maybe less, of people that I find credible or worth talking to. And I'm the kind of person personally that I would rather talk to someone who's not famous but knowledgeable, like, for instance, Wayne Poland, who's very knowledgeable and he has a lot of integrity. I'd rather talk to him 2 or 3 times than to bring one guy on who's famous, who's lying. That's just my personal ethics in the situation. So, I kind of started to look at this and I felt a little bit trapped. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to keep having the same people on because that's not good broadcasting. That's not good entertainment for you, the audience. I can't expect you to hang on if we just keep kind of regurgitating the same old stuff. And, I had talked a lot in the very beginning about some directions I wanted to go with this show. And, I was having trivia questions at the beginning and trying to generate that, but there wasn't much of an audience, and the trivia stuff and that audience participation wasn't working because there was no audience there. And so it left me looking a little bit silly when I was trying to generate some excitement, but there was no one there to receive that energy and give the feedback loop that shows or performers have between their audience and so on and so forth. So that wasn't going to work for me. And so, it obviously evolved into this more kind of a interview show, commentary sometimes, but really mostly about great interviews and asking good questions. That's my focus. And so, I in the beginning, I was like, I want, to have a futurist on and this person and that person. And then I kind of fell away from that. And it got easy to do the UFO stuff because I was getting to know some people and people had appeared on the show and they'd had a good time. And, almost all of the guests that I've had on are just, they are just stellar. And they're people that I like to talk to, but I also have a responsibility to produce something that's interesting and entertaining. Otherwise, there's no reason for me to do this. I don't really come here for me to talk. Like I'm not that egotistical. I have some ego, obviously, but that's not my trip at all. So as I started to, I was starting to feel like I had painted myself into a corner a little bit. And I definitely have always wanted to maintain some comedy connections and comedy roots to this show because I have some connections to the comedy world. And Hot Rock Superjoint was an incredible success in terms of moving that direction to provide some variety. And I know that I talked about taking some trips, Area 51, and then some participants started to drop out due to conflicts or changes in schedule. And so that started to fall apart. And I was looking at some of my travel, and I definitely need to educate myself on how to produce an episode out of vacation. That is not something I have a lot of experience with, so I need to educate myself on that. And I will pick up back on that. And I'm going to circle back around to this travel topic by the end of the show. So, anyway, you know, I'm looking at who's available to talk about this stuff. I want to get some cryptid people on, but getting some really good quality cryptid people on is very difficult. There's fewer of them. And it's not that I didn't contact people. I contacted people, but the people I did are kind of bigger names, and it just kind of blew me off. And I didn't hear back. So I don't know what to do to keep knocking at that door of cryptozoology and get someone from that world to come on the show. So if anyone out there listening knows anyone in the crypto world who might be game for coming on the show, please let them know. But anyway, I'm trying to diversify the subject matter a little bit so that I don't paint myself into a corner and have the same guests on and some of the same topics. And, you know, even I want to see variety, right? I wouldn't want to watch, you know, some of the same stuff like I've been talking about. And I have a good example. There's a lady, her name, and she's a doctor, Dr. Judith Grisel. And she wrote this book on addiction. It's called Never Enough. And she is a neuroscientist. Okay. She is an expert. And she's also someone who's in recovery from drug addiction. And she wrote this book about how the brain functions on a physiological level when it comes to addiction and how that process works and how people can get into recovery. And this certainly isn't one of those shows. I heard her on NPR. And I thought, you know, there's a neuroscientist and she could have interesting things to say about the brain. And in terms of that kind of science, that definitely falls within the scope of the show. So I contacted Dr. Judith Grisel, and to my surprise, she responded almost within 24 hours. And she had just been on Terry Gross's show on NPR, which is in that world pretty big. And she responded, and I was like, oh my God, this woman is, you know, I have a chance of getting this author on here. We can talk about something really scientific. And then she took a look at some of my episodes, and she turned me down. She said she didn't know why she would even have any purpose to come on a show that's had stuff about UFOs and stuff. So I got shot down. So there's some of that going on, but that didn't stop me. And the reason I started buying books, quite honestly, is because in doing research for the show, I started watching a lot of content online. And you know, just everybody, you know, Joe from the Carolinas, CW, Dolan, the people that I respect and, you know, I actually care about what they have to say, dark journalists. A lot of these people, I've started taking in a lot of content, but then you know what happens when you start watching stuff on YouTube or on other platforms. Sometimes you get sucked in, you go down that rabbit hole, and you wind up watching some crazy shit that you had no intention of ever watching in the first place. And I also watch other interview shows just to watch the interview techniques. And I look at production values, and I'm like, you know, I have to keep up with that, you know. So I'm kind of looking at this. I'm not really a competitive person, but just seeing what the quote unquote competition is doing out there in terms of production style, interview style, what's popular in terms of content, what's not working, what's falling flat. And I just felt like my soul was starting to get filled with garbage. It was just like I like the internet. I most certainly do, but even I was getting sick of what I was seeing. And so I started buying books, and don't read into this at all. I'm not suffering from heroin addiction or anything, but I bought this book, Recovery, Freedom from Our Addictions, Russell Brand. And it's not just about drugs. It's about any kind of addiction to anything. And part of why I'm reading this is because I'm trying to lose weight. So I'm trying to get behind the shit in my head to help me stay on this diet to improve my health so that I don't have times when I miss doing my show or miss real life events with my family because I'm too sick. So I'm honing in on this self-discipline, right? So, you know, I picked up these books, and I had sent a request to Russell Brand to be on the show. And, you know, as you can imagine, someone with a show like this, where thank you very much, I have 453 subscribers. When someone looks at that show or they look at the UFO stuff, or they just look at my relatively small number of subscribers compared to what people have on other channels. So I get shot down. So don't think that I'm not out there going to bat, trying to hone this show and make it as good as I can. I'm trying, and I'm trying to shoot for quality guests. And I know that this will happen. I know that if I try hard enough and apply myself, that I can get Russell Brand on this show. I'm that confident. That's not arrogance. That's just confidence. I feel like I have a relatively good shot if I just keep asking politely and asking the correct person, quite honestly. So I started reading these books to just turn off the internet. And I'm going to tell you what I haven't done. I have been popping some stuff up on Twitter and on Facebook, but I haven't actually gone to the platforms and seen anything of what anyone is saying in almost 2 weeks. I just kind of turned it off. I wasn't feeling very well. And in that, I just needed to clear my head and think about this show. Like, what am I doing? Because, in reference back to the C.W. Chanter love letter to him, that was, he said some things in response, and he had said some things before that really got me thinking about this. It's like, what? I started to question my own motivations. What am I doing? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? I told myself in the very beginning that I wanted to be entertaining and have fun and have a different kind of show than what other people are doing. I think I've succeeded in some ways, and I think I haven't quite met that standard yet in others, but we're still striving for that, rather. So I just don't want to do what someone else is doing. There's no reason for me to do that. I'm a musician, and I have no interest in playing in a cover band. And I've always been that way. And it's not that I don't know how to play some songs by other people or that I wouldn't play them out. But in terms of being in a bar band and playing other people's tunes every night and going out and acting cool by playing someone else's songs, that I have no interest in that. So not to stray too far away from that, that's, kind of my attitude towards this. Like, this needs to be original and fun. And I think staying focused on some of the topics that I had been focusing on that had become easy to talk about because I was having a good time and having great conversations, but it became easy. So these books diversify the direction, and there is a point to this. This isn't endless rambling. Just stay with me. So then I picked up this book by Richard J. Dewhurst called Ancient Giants Who Ruled America. And this looks fascinating. And this is someone that I would like to have on the show. The subtitle is The Missing Skeletons and the Great Smithsonian Cover-Up. And this is not crazy conspiracy theory bullshit. This is fact. And I myself personally knew a very knowledgeable amateur archaeologist who when I was a kid, I would go out and I would hunt for arrowheads and artifacts with this guy. It was my best friend's dad. And even my best friend didn't want to go out and look for arrowheads with his dad, but sometimes I would go with him and I'd learned the technique for hunting them, and we talked a lot. And even he had told me that there had been a giant race of natives and that there was evidence of them, but that it was being cut, and must have been somewhere between the age of 10 and 14 when I got that information. So that is something that I heard privately from someone so many years ago. And then here's this great book, Richard J. Dewhurst. So is that a direction for this show? Absolutely. I want to open it up. I'm going to show you what else I got. And I literally have this stack of books, and I like books. Fuck Kindle. The Secrets of the FBI by Ronald Kessler. The Secrets of the FBI. I even know the professional television trick of tilting this down so that you don't get the reflection from the light. The Secrets of the FBI. Ronald Kessler. He wrote In the President's Secret Service. And so I'm flipping through this, and I'm not trying to pretend like I'm reading all these books at the same time. That's by no means what's going on. I'm having to prioritize them. But what I'm doing by sharing this reading list with you is showing you where my head is at and the direction that I'm going to try to steer things. You know, this isn't an aircraft carrier in the U.S. Navy. This isn't a huge Carnival cruise ship, which I don't think I would get on one of those. But, you know, it doesn't take a lot to turn this show around because I'm kind of the captain here, and I certainly have some help from the professor in pursuing X. But this show does not happen in a vacuum, trust me. It takes other people to make this happen. And so it's easy for me to turn this that way. And I may start doing some book reviews. I may burn through a couple of these books and we'll do a quick review. And I don't want that to be boring. You know, I'm just showing you some other directions that we can talk about so that I don't keep just constantly bashing David Wilcock, Corey Good, and David Emery for being liars. You know, I need something else to talk about. I have this book, The Pentagon's Brain, and boy, does this look like a hot one to me. And it's an uncensored history of DARPA, America's top secret military research agency, Annie Jacobson. And it does turn out that she had written 2 other books, Area 51 and Operation Paperclip. I'm going to be really honest. I don't know about her. If anyone knows about her, let me know. But this is someone else I'm going to hit up to come on the show. And these kinds of topics I'm interested in. And even though I never served in the military, I have always admired and respected people that serve in the military. I think serving our country is a noble endeavor. And that's not to comment on the politics or the misuse of said military forces by politicians or other entities. But like I said, and I said this in the very first episode of this show, the overwhelming majority of military personnel for the United States comes from the middle class or even lower middle class and poor people. Very rarely do you see rich people joining the military, unless it's like an admiral's kid or something like that, you know, a John McCain. And, you know, not that he wasn't a hero in his own right. He certainly was. But you know, you just don't see many people of means and privilege joining the military. It's usually a step up for people. People who want to go and work hard on their own accord, earn some education, earn some experience, learn a trade, and they experience upward social mobility through joining the military. And I just think it's a noble thing. You know, we all know the sacrifices they make, but it's in pursuit of, you know, not only bettering themselves, but serving the country at the same time. And I think we owe them a tremendous debt. So I've always been interested in like spy stuff, military hardware. Like I'm one of the biggest pacifists you might ever want to meet, but I'm not a stupid pacifist. I don't want violence. I don't want war, but then sometimes it's necessary and you do have to defend yourself. I mean, we can't sit on our hands and just let a huge country like China run amok in the world. Then again, we have to question our own interests, but we're not getting into politics. But my head is always in that space. I love the military technology. I like just the science behind this stuff, the hardcore science. Oh yeah, I'm going to show you something. Anyway, so this kind of military hardware, military software, military techniques, those kinds of things. I have an intellectual interest in that. Being a person that's not gung-ho hawk, being someone who's never served in the military, I have an unusual interest, I think, in some of this stuff, and I can't really explain why, but I've just always dug that kind of stuff. Now, and these were kind of in an ascending order in terms of who I would like to have on the show. I have this book, American Cosmic, and it's UFOs, Religion and Technology by D.W. Pasulka, which is a woman. And she should be known. If you're watching this show, you've probably heard of her. You've probably heard her on other shows. This is the second book I'm going to read. I don't think I have my other book. I've got this one that's trending on emerging technologies, but this is a what's his name? Kelly something. He worked for Wired. He was a contributor and an editor of Wired. And I'm willing to bet he's too big to come on this show, but I'll still talk about it. And I've shown this book before in passing, but I want to bring it up because it's relevant. And that is Weird Arizona. And this is, you've seen a lot of these books. There's Weird America. It's almost like a dummy's guide to blah, blah, blah. They've kind of franchised this thing out or whatever. And this is by Wesley Treat, your travel guide to Arizona's local legends and best kept secrets. And I'm going to use this as kind of a personal guide for myself. Yeah, I'm not getting anything from any of these people. I'm not endorsing these books. I'm not telling you to buy it. I'm telling you what I bought for myself and what I'm interested in. So I'm not getting anything for this. But if those authors would love to thank me by coming on the show, that'd be awesome. And I contacted those guys too, and I got no response. But I'm going to go out and do some location stuff. So I'm picking through these books, and I'm kind of staying off the internet a little bit. And I'm trying to just refocus my head and also work around this trap of having the same people on and regurgitating the same topics. And, you know, I'm just going to, I like being able to be honest with you, and I appreciate you being here. And I want to be transparent with you because I want to know, I want you to know where my head is at, where my heart is at, and that I'm dedicated to producing a show that has some integrity. But at the same time, I've had to sort through the immense pressure of another show, another guest, another show, another guest, another show, another guest. I mean, it's a lot when you have a personal life going on. And I did get into all this, and I will finish up. So this stack of books, these are books I'm actually reading through. This is where my head's at. These are some of the directions I'm going to try to take this show. And some of this stuff is we're going to edge into some hard science and get into some of that, but still fascinating, mysterious topics, right? I still love the paranormal. I love the cryptid stuff. I'm never going to just get disinterested in UFOs, but I know that we have to grow as a show in terms of topic and content, and I owe that to you. If you're going to spend your time watching this show and you're going to invest your time and your attention, I owe it to you to produce something wonderful, or as wonderful as I can possibly make it, or my budget allows. And those aren't always all the same things. Sometimes those things align, but not always. And that does kind of circle me back around to why I wasn't here last night and started to mention kind of a public service announcement. As we get into summer, and I know that this is going to sound cheesy as hell, and when other people would say things like this to me, or I would hear them on television or on the radio, I would be like, yeah, right, you know, what the fuck ever, and kind of blow stuff off. But as we move into summer, and I know there is a reason I'm saying this, especially if you have kids or you're around extended family and you go to a lot of events, you might want to consider taking a first aid course, just a basic first aid course. And maybe that doesn't mean you're going to go down to the American Red Cross in your city and go in the building and sit down and get certified. That would be a good idea, but you could also look up this information online. I'm sure there's plenty of videos that you could educate yourself with and not have to go sit down and take the class. And let's face it, realistically, that's probably more what's likely to happen. But maybe think about safety and first aid. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to kind of redact some of the information in what I'm about to tell you just to maintain some privacy for our family. But I was fully intending to have a show last night. And by the way, Jiggy from Paranormal Hood was supposed to be here tonight, but he's refurbishing his studio and he's going to be here next Saturday night. So more about Jiggy later. So last night, you know, our local starting time has changed. We changed our broadcast time. And so 7 o'clock Arizona time is when I go on the air now, which is 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So long story short, I get a call from the school. Our son is not feeling so well. He's kind of droopy, but he hasn't been feeling well lately. So I had to go early, and I went and I scooped him up from school, and he's not acting right at all. He was asleep when I got there. And when I woke him up, he startled and he woke up and he was confused about where he was and his eyes were dilated. And come to find out, he had hit his head during recess at lunch. No fault of the school's or anyone else's. This was something he did, which was an accident of his own volition. And he hit his head, but he didn't tell anyone. But because I had been trained in CPR and first aid on an annual basis for several years in the field that I used to work in, the psychiatric field, I knew that these were classic signs of a concussion. And he wasn't speaking clearly. His eyes were dilated. He was groggy. And at first, I'd never witnessed any of this firsthand. This was only abstract concepts I learned in training. And it's been a couple of decades since I worked in that field on a practical day-to-day basis in terms of direct care on that level. So I've been out of that for a while, but my training kicked in. I did a body assessment of him immediately, and I knew that there was something wrong. My instincts, this checklist for concussion symptoms were there, and I was like, this kid's got a concussion. So fast forward about an hour and a half before showtime, we're transporting to the emergency room. And it did indeed turn out that he has a mild, very mild concussion. But a mild concussion is still like a bad bang to your head. Don't misunderstand that. No bruising, no bleeding in the brain, but they did say his brain was shifted a little bit in there. And it affected his autonomic system. It affected his heart rate, his breathing. Like, it was a good thing we took him to the hospital, and it was really weird and scary to hear a child like slur their words, be disoriented. And if I had not known the symptoms of a concussion, if I had not known what to look for, if I had not known the checklist and then known how to activate some kind of plan of action in that moment, that might have slipped past me. And this could have been worse for him. And the reason I bring that up is there is a child in the area here in the Phoenix area that was recently hurt this week who fell down at a school and hit their head on the curb and suffered a terrible brain injury and is now in a coma. And I'm not going to say the child's name. It did make it into the local news. If you care that much, you would be able to dig it up. But I'm not exploiting kids in this family's trauma for my show. But this happened, and we know about this, and some people in the area know about this kid. And this little girl, I believe, is kindergarten age. And so I don't do the thoughts and prayers thing, but we're all hoping that this little girl pulls through and that she has a full recovery. But she is not out of the woods, and we do not know that. We don't know these people personally. We don't know her prognosis. I'm not trying to pretend that either. But this is something that happened. And so within a week, here we are. We have a kid who got seriously hurt by just simply running and falling down at school after school. And then our kid who banged his head on the play set, but he was underneath it and no one saw it and he didn't tell anyone, but then he was symptomatic. And these symptoms kind of went past his teachers, and it's no fault of theirs. He's been ill recently, so there was every reason to expect him to be a little droopy and not feeling well. So it's not like they weren't doing their job. I'm not implying that. I'm just saying there were some fine details, and that was due to my training. That's why I'm nailing this home. It was because of my medical training and my training in how to respond to these situations I took action. And we're heading into summer. Yes, there is a point to this. Yes, we're going to bring it home. We're heading into summer. People go to lakes, they go swimming, they go camping, they take trips, they do all kinds of stuff. If you've got kids, if you've got extended family or friends or anyone, if you're going out and you're an active person and you're doing this stuff, bone up on some first aid and some CPR. because you never know when that's going to come in handy when you're out doing things. And if you watch this show on a regular basis, you know I don't normally talk about stuff like this, and this isn't a big PSA thing, but this, you know, affected our family. So much so that when we rushed him to the hospital, I didn't take my phone with me. I didn't do anything to say anything to anyone about there not being a show last night because the kid was sick and it was serious business. So when something like that can kind of hit you out of the blue unexpectedly, just friendly food for thought. Think about that as we head into summer, and maybe be prepared for the unexpected, because we certainly have a lot of unexpected events in our society these days. And then something personal like that can happen. That is, of course, nothing nefarious whatsoever. Accidents happen, but it is something to keep in mind. So I just want to put that out there just as a friendly thing. And in terms of Jiggy being on next Saturday, he has a podcast called Paranormal. I met Jiggy in person at Contact in the Desert last year, and him and I hit it off, but he had kind of a schedule that he was keeping and other people that he was meeting with. So we didn't get to hang as much as we wanted to, but I did do an interview with him. And it was along with that batch of interviews that was Richard Dolan and Tracy Dolan and Jimmy Church. It was audio only. I wasn't doing any video at the time. And when I got home and I played it back, I had patched something incorrectly on location. And Jiggy's voice is in one ear and my voice is in another ear. And it's not good audio. So I've got this canned interview with Jiggy, but it was just unusable. I could not broadcast it with that poor quality. So we're gonna rehash that interview a little bit. We'll go back over some of what him and I talked about, and then we'll talk about some new stuff. And in terms of travel and doing location shoots, I have made arrangements towards next month, probably the last week of April. I'm going to go to Boston, and I'm going to hang out with Jiggy, and I'm going to appear on Jiggy's show. And I think we're going to go to some locations in Boston. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse and build it up too much, because I'm going to be a guest and they're going to be hosting, and I don't really know the details, but I do know that they are making some plans for me to be there. And so I'm going to go to Boston, and there are plenty of historical / haunted places in Boston. And I'm hoping that Jiggy will take me out and show me some of those locations. And if Jiggy does not take me out, I'll probably go out and go anyway, at least somewhere. But Jiggy has access to locations that might be somewhat off limits normally, but these are places that only a local would know about. And I'm hoping that he will take me to some of those out of the way nooks and crannies of Boston, some of these strange locations, and we'll get some footage. So just know that I'm working on my location production skills, which probably is going to require me getting a different kind of microphone. That's where I've been falling flat. It's one thing to film, and it's another thing to film and get audio to marry with that and have the correct kind of microphone. So that's the technical issue. So yes, there's going to be a trip late April to Boston. I'll be visiting Jiggy. I'll be on Paranormal Hood. He'll be here in this slot at this time next Saturday. And he has an amazing story. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a teaser. He had a near-death experience that absolutely changed his life forever. And that's all I need to say about that. I'm going to let him tell his story next week. And as usual, I will come back to social media. I haven't completely abandoned it. So in terms of all that, I need to say hello to Jimmy Pearson, Mika. Oh my goodness, what I do, I did not fade it up. See, this is what happens. You get out of the groove. It's that muscle memory. It's the happy song. Mika, Jimmy, Sarah, I hope you've recovered. I'll be back in touch. If you've been trying to reach me on social media and you've wondered where I went, I just ducked out to kind of regroup and think about what I want to do with this show. I love doing this show. I love it that you're here. thank you for spending your time here. Please like, please subscribe, and please share, and please comment. I like the comments as well. I do read them. I go back and I comment. Thank you so much. I'm going to have 2 guests next week. Same time, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That's our new time. Jiggy's next Saturday night. I don't know who I've got Friday, but I'll have somebody. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Professor. Thank you to Pursuing X. Thank you to everyone. Jiggy. Who else? Hot Rock. We're going to have a 420 special with Hot Rock again, too, as well. So thank you for being here. And let's see. Have I lost my touch on this?